In 2008, no factory burned down. No harvest failed, no machine broke. Every worker who could build a car on Monday could still build one on Friday. Nothing physical was destroyed. And 8.7 million people lost their jobs anyway. That is the strange thing about recessions. The economy does not run out of anything. It just stops using what it has. So what is a recession actually? Not 2 quarters of falling output. That is a headline rule, and it is wrong often enough to matter. In 2001, the American economy had a recession without 2 consecutive negative quarters at all. The people who officially date American recessions are a small committee of economists, and they are not looking at one number. They look for 3 things: depth, diffusion, and duration. A decline that is deep, that spreads across the whole economy, and that lasts more than a few months. They read employment, income, spending, production, and sales together because any single measure can lie. Not one factory having a bad year. The whole machine slowing down at once, which raises the obvious question: what makes an entire machine slow down at once? To see what breaks, look at how the machine runs. Here is the single most underrated fact in economics. Your spending is somebody else's income. Every euro you hand over at a bakery becomes the baker's wage, which becomes her rent, which becomes her landlord's grocery money. Money is not stored. It circulates. In 2025, consumer spending was about 68% of the entire American economy. 2/3 of everything, moving in a loop. So now imagine the loop gets nervous. Imagine everyone, all at once and for perfectly good reasons, decides this is a sensible month to spend a little less. Nothing was destroyed. But the loop slows. And that is the whole answer. But loops do not slow for no reason. Something has to make everyone cautious at the same moment. Historically, the sparks look wildly different. An oil shock, a housing crash, a central bank raising rates to kill inflation, a virus. In February 2020, the spark was a pathogen, and the economy went from record employment to the deepest quarterly collapse ever recorded in about 8 weeks. Output fell at an annualized rate of 31%. Here is the uncomfortable part. Economists still argue about which sparks cause recessions and which ones simply arrive first. Because the spark is rarely the real story. The fuel is. The fuel is debt. Debt is a promise to pay with money you expect to earn later. In good years, those promises stack up quietly because everyone's expectations are pointing the same way and a promise only looks reckless in hindsight. Then the loop slows. Incomes fall short, and here is the cruel asymmetry. Your income can drop, but your mortgage cannot. The promises do not shrink with them. So households stop spending in order to keep paying. Businesses cut costs, which means cutting costs, which means cutting someone's income, which means less spending, which slows the loop again, which forces the next round of cuts. Every single one of those decisions is individually correct. Collectively, they are a disaster. The caution becomes the catastrophe. A recession is a feedback loop wearing a costume. We have working machines, willing workers, and a loop running backwards. Somebody should see this coming. And here's the thing, we do have warning signals. Some of them have been right for 70 years. There's just one problem with all of them, and it is not the one you would guess. The bot has been building a machine to predict this since the start of the video. It is not going well. It would like you to know that every subscriber makes the machine measurably better, which is not true, but it is very committed to the claim. The duck disagrees. Subscribe anyway. The duck is outvoted. The best known signal is the yield curve. Normally, lending money for 10 years pays more than lending it for 2. When that flips, it means the bond market expects trouble. It has inverted before every American recession since 1955, with one false alarm. in 1966. That is a remarkable record. Another signal, the SOM rule, watches unemployment. If the 3-month average climbs half a point above its recent low, a recession has usually already started. It triggered in July 2024. No recession followed. And here is the flaw in all of them, which is not that they are wrong. It is that they are vague about time. They tell you a recession is likely sometimes 2 years early, sometimes months after it already started, and never precisely when. A signal that says sometime in the next 24 months is useless for deciding anything this week. Worse, once a signal becomes famous, people act on it, which changes what it was measuring. And the official committee that dates recessions announces the start about 8 months after the fact, because they wait for the data to stop revising. The stamp always arrives after the damage. So should we simply prevent them? A serious school of thought says no, and it deserves a fair hearing. In this view, a recession is the economy correcting itself. Money flowed into things people did not actually want, and the downturn is the painful process of moving workers and capital toward things they do. Prop up every failing bet, the argument goes, and you rescue the mistake along with the person, and you end up with a slow economy full of companies that should not exist. It is a real argument, made by serious people, and the evidence for it is mixed rather than absent. The counterpoint is equally real. The cost of that correction is not paid by the people who made the bets. In 2009, American unemployment hit 10%. Long-term joblessness does not just pause a career, it permanently lowers what people earn for decades afterwards, and it follows their children. Cleansing is a lovely metaphor when it is not your job. Recessions end when the loop restarts, and the loop restarts when somebody spends while everyone else is still afraid. Usually that somebody is a government or a central bank, cutting rates or spending directly because they are the only actors who can afford to be reckless on purpose. Sometimes it is just time. Debts get paid down, inventories run out, and the things people postponed become things they cannot postpone any longer. Your roof does not care about the business cycle. In 2020, the restart was violent. The economy fell 31% in one quarter and rose 33% in the next. 2 months of recession and years of arguing about it. Zoom out far enough, and the pattern is almost gentle. Since 1945, the average American recession lasted about 10 months. The average expansion lasted about 64. 6 years of building, 10 months of breaking, over and over. That ratio is the entire reason the long line goes up despite everything, and it is worth holding on to when the news makes each downturn sound like the last one. Recessions are not the economy failing. They are the economy discovering, in the most expensive way available, that millions of people were quietly assuming the same thing at the same time, and that they were wrong. So here is the real question, and there is no correct answer. What is one thing you would stop buying tomorrow if you thought a recession was coming? 5 words is enough. Every honest answer is part of the loop, and I am pinning the one that makes the rest of us think hardest. See you in the next one.